Hey, Peter.
Hey, Adam.
A lot of people could tell you what voicings to play, but what if I told you what voicings not to play?
Ooh, that's what I want to hear.
I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily music advice coming at you.
I love it. Today is our first day in our new pod suite on YouTube. What's
Hi,
up,
everybody.
YouTube? Shout out to
Man,
the
there's
YouTube.
so many cameras, I don't even know which one to look at.
Yeah, we just moved from our dank-ass pod cave into this beautiful pod suite.
Yes.
We have our Hammer 88s. We have our light-up keyboard.
That's right. That'll be a good little initial test for it.
Yeah, I don't even know if it can go that fast, but we'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah.
And today we're talking about something that we get asked a lot about. These are 4 common voicing mistakes. These are 4 mistakes that you might be making, and we're going to tell you some things not to do to make your voicing sound better.
That's right. So voicings, we've talked about before, things to do, and as is often the case with trying to develop as a keyboard player, you've got to take some stuff out that's not working to get to that gold that's in there. And voicings can become they're such a mystery to so many people, and there's so many choices, and you can have so many notes happening at the same time that you really got to get in tune with what not to do and stop making these same mistakes, because you're going to find you're not going to have to just start from nothing. There's some good stuff in there, so you got to let it out.
No, you probably know some great voicings already, but what you need to do is start subtracting the ones that don't sound great from your repertoire, and maybe subtracting some concepts that you're applying to your chords that will make you sound a lot better. And we'll get into the very first one.
Yeah, which is exactly this is going to work, and that is you're doubling too many notes. You're doing too much doubling, basically.
Right, and you don't have to do this much. Like, you don't have to play as many notes as you think you do, and I hear this kind of voicing all the time. Right? 2 C major 7s stacked on top of each other.
Right.
That sounds terrible.
That's right.
And it just doesn't sound as full as it could sound, or as rich as it could sound, as if you, say, played like a C major 13 with...
That's a little space.
There's some space. There's no repeated notes in these voicings.
Yes.
You know, a few years ago, I came up with this system for having voicings with any kind of melody note on top and not repeating any notes. And for me to kind of create that really was a game changer. And so anytime that you can break down what you're playing and take away the double notes, the repeated notes, it's going to sound way better. And if it sounds thinner when you do that, then you probably have some weird architecture to your voicing that you need to take a note down an octave or up an octave or something like that.
Yeah, and notice we're saying that, you know, the mistake is that you're doubling too many notes. It's not to say that you cannot double at all. And look, all of this is about how does the voicing sound and how does it work in the flow of what you're doing.
Right.
We're using our ears to determine. But it's like, try taking that doubling away and then putting back in. Let your ears adjust to that and find which one. Because there's something like even this kind of voicing, which often I'll play kind of C minor 11, and there's some doubling. You got that in there. But watch, if I don't double... So I've shifted it, and also this, I'm just moving the notes around. The same notes are in there, but without the doubling.
It's clean.
You know, so you can try those.
It's clean.
And then also, like you go to that, say, like you're doing a 2-5-1.
Yeah.
That, I've got the third double. Watch when I take away the third in the left hand.
It pops. It's just shinier.
Take it away in the right hand, even better.
Shinier somehow.
Yeah.
Like, what you don't want to get into is just a lot of like... You know what I mean? These are just like the overtones are just killing you.
Yeah.
What sounds better is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way. You're doing too much.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
then let me just show one thing. I always use this as a reference point. It's not even necessarily a voicing I use a lot, but it's a great kind of. Whoa, that was loud. These are two Thelonious Monk voicings, and they do include doubling.
Yeah.
But just that 7. But then the way there was, I love that this is.
Yeah, like doubling to bring
deer.
out a note in a chord is totally cool. But if you're just doubling because you don't know any better, take some time, take some intention with your voicings.
Yes.
We're not saying never double in your voicings, because you can, but be intentional with it.
Exactly.
All right, number 2 is only playing rooted or only playing rootless voicings. You got to play to the sound. You can't just put these hard rules where it's like, okay, there's a bass player, so I'm never going to play roots. Or I'm playing solo piano, so I'm always going to play roots. don't be so dogmatic with that. Sometimes a good rooted voicing when you're playing with a bass player just fills out the chord in general. Like that sounds one way, but with that root on the bottom, it sounds a completely different way. Another example would be like this C7 sharp 11 without the root, right? So if we have a bass player, that sounds totally cool. But if I wanted a little punchier, I'll throw in that C. It's not too low. It's not going to be in the bass player's range. It just fills out the bottom end of that voicing. On the flip side, if I'm playing solo piano and just everything is just, like has the root on it, I'm going down, it's going to get too monotonous. You can actually come up and play rootless voicings all the time. And learn your inversions for your solo piano voicings. Don't just go, 1, 7, 3 all the time. Like you can play more than the root for sure.
Yeah, and I love the concept that you said. So it's really worth repeating. Play to the sound.
That's right.
So that means you need to be listening to see, especially when we're playing solo piano and we have potentially more choices and more, sort of total control over what's happening. But even when we're playing with a bass player, we're listening. So it's not about like, oh, this is a rule, I can't go down. Well, where's the bass player playing? Know what the range of where the bass is. You might want to go beneath there for a minute. Also, this rooted versus rootless is kind of a false, forced choice.
Yeah.
In that articulation has so much to do with it. So like if you're staccato and kind of jumping in and out, boom, 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 moving around, you can do a lot of rooted voicing, so-called, that don't even sound like rooted voicing when the bass player's playing.
Yeah, and you can also conversely do rootless voicings that get way in the way if you're just sustaining everything and you're way down in the low tenor range. Like, it's all about knowing the timbre of the instruments you're playing with.
Yeah. Okay, so the number 3 of the common voicing mistakes we hear, things that you don't want to do, and that is not considering what came before and after the voicing that you're playing.
Context is king.
Context is king. So what do we mean here? There's a nice F13 kind of thing, not a lot of doubling, nice kind of sound, and then we're going to go B flat on a blues.
Ugh. Where are we? What neighborhood are we in?
Yeah, exactly. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
None of those voicings are bad, but they're not part of a logical progression. You might be within the chord progression in the form, but there's not, like, the voice leading isn't there. Now, not to say you can't jump up, but there has to be a musical reason to do it. And you're still considering
a
dramatic thing.
You don't love this sound?
Very good voice leading, I would say.
Same shape, just moving around.
Yeah, I mean, when you're starting out,
when you're starting out, that's fine. But we don't want that when we are developing our voicing skills. When we're learning how to really accompany other people, we want to get great voice leading with the top voice, with the bottom voice, with the inner voices. That's like inner voice leading. That's like pro level stuff, right? When you're considering every note as its own voice. But you can start in the beginning with just simple voice leading on the top. Like you had that F7. If I'm here, my F7, which is a rootless voicing starting on E flat with the C on the top, the best choice is probably not going to be going to the B flat.
Right.
And it doesn't sound terrible, but it might sound better if I did something like,
exactly.
I can keep that top note the same and start creating melodies.
That's why having, a variety and a really good repertoire of voicings is so important, because it's not about. And how many times have we gotten this question? What's a good voicing for F13 sharp 11?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, well, it depends. What's going on? Like, what did you just play? What are you about to play? There's no one right answer to that. So you've got to have quite a few in your arsenal so that when you come to the situation, and there's going to be times when the drama requires or calls for you to kind of go off the reservation, but that you're still doing it for musical reasons.
I love it. Yeah. So number 4 of our common voicing mistakes is you're not considering the dynamics when you're playing.
Wait, are we supposed to be thinking about dynamics?
Yes, we are, very much so. So this can work with if you're accompanying someone or if you're even accompanying yourself. And I think both are important to consider. So when we're playing big, thick voicings, like if we're playing in a jazz context, like how hard I'm playing should be a consideration with what's going on. Like I can be much more supportive and swinging exactly with what you're doing, right? And that's much more effective and actually more supportive and sounds better than if I'm just constantly like we're at a mid-tempo, little tipper here, and I'm just always like, that sucks. Or
sloppy.
Conversely, if I'm playing for myself, like I'm gonna cut down there. I'm going to bring out the melody. You'll never hear me, just it forces you to just like be this player that you don't want to be. Think about then how you're forcing other players to be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So, yeah. And, it's so easy to get caught up in this thing of like, intervals and alterations and doubling and all the things that are interesting about voicings. And then even if you're going next level, like where you're coming from, where you're going, but dynamics, articulation, rhythm, like these are all, linked with successful voicings much more than we think, than just the choice of notes. Once you've chosen the notes that you're going to use for your voicing, be it two-handed or one-handed, it's so important to think about it in the context of music and how we're going to play it.
And then the pro level of the dynamics for voicings is something that masters like Keith Jarrett and Herbie Hancock are so good at, and that's bringing out individual voicings in your chord.
Actually voicing the voicing.
Like a great exercise for this is just to play a voicing Again, I'll go back to this 5-note F7 voicing. Start from the top. See if you can make the top come out. Pretty easy because it's the top. See if you can make the second come out, the second note from the top. Third from the top. That's easy because it's the thumb. We'll go fourth. Right? Just try to make that stick out. And then the bottom note. But working on those kinds of dynamics, even though like if you're comping, right? Like maybe you're not thinking that, but you start to be able to speak that way.
Yes. Well, and then what you mentioned about the thumb, commonly what I'm hearing is that's sort of the default because there's an inattention to the details.
You hear a heavy thumb. Yeah.
And then that's an okay voice. It's actually not a great voicing, but I'm purposely making it bad. But I mean, even if it was like, why is that so strong? Just because it's the thumb,
Sucks. Yeah, I don't want to listen to that.
Going through a progression, that becomes even more important. And when you're playing ballads,
that's where it's so key.
Yeah, and we don't think about that always as, but that's where it can be really manipulated and used to your advantage.
I saw Keith Jarrett live once in New Jersey, and he pretty much brought down the entire audience to their knees with one chord that he played on a ballad, and it just the note that he brought out so subtly. I mean, it was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
great stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So those are the 4 common voicing mistakes we see. I think if you can sort of peel those away and see if you got something left, you might be in some pretty good shape. We're hoping.
That's right. Go visit our sponsor. That's Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com. Check out all of our courses, including our Piano Access Pass. That's every piano course we've ever made. And if you sign up for the yearly membership, you'll get every new piano course that we'll make this year, which will be quite a few.
That's right. And until tomorrow,
you'll hear it.